What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 877-342-6673. That's 877-342-6673.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And we're talking about the protests that are growing across the country, and they're getting bigger and bigger, and the media is now grudgingly trying to cover them. They're trying to blur the message. They don't want the American people to understand. What this is a protest against is the money junkies and the Federal Reserve in a financial system that, by design, strips wealth from the people who earn it and transfers it to people who do nothing but game the system. And there are a lot of people who are desperate to derail this. There are a lot of groups that are trying to hijack it and blunt it. Alex Jones is out there screaming this is all a plot by Obama and George Soros. And he's saying, he's dissing the Occupy Wall Street people. I'll get back to that in a minute. I even got an email from somebody saying it's all a plot by the Freemasons. But I'll tell you who stands to lose the most if Occupy America works. And that is Israel. Israel is scared out of their minds if this succeeds for two reasons. If Israel does not succeed in derailing Occupy Wall Street / Occupy America, they're going to lose all those billions of dollars that come from the U.S. government to buy them weapons to shower all over Palestinian children. They're going to lose all the weapons that get sent to them for free by the United States government. They're going to lose all those loan guarantees. And most importantly, Israel will lose the veto of the United States at the United Nations Security Council, without which they could not have gotten away with their war crimes for the last quarter of a century. And so that is who is really trying to derail this right now. This nation is a slave to Israel by virtue of the government being a slave to Israel. If the American people throw out the U.S. federal government, Israel has lost their biggest herd of slave animals and walking wallets. And I think that's the reason Alex Jones is out there basically bashing the Occupy Wall Street people. Because as he himself has said, we've seen the YouTube video, he supports Israel. And Israel does not want this to go anywhere, any more than they didn't want the protest in Egypt to succeed, because Mubarak was owned by them. We're going through that same process all over again. And yes, during the Icelandic and Egyptian revolutions, their media was dissing the protesters and making fun of them and saying, oh, it's all a plot by unreachable, vague groups. It's the Knights Templar. They're out. It's Tutankhamun has come from the grave. And just nonsensical stuff. But that's who stands to lose the most if Occupy America takes off and we shut down the Federal Reserve, we free ourselves from this enslavement, this rule by compound interest. When we all wake up and realize that rule by compound interest is no more legitimate than rule by divine right or rule by chattel ownership of our bodies, Israel will have lost a huge chunk of money that just comes to them like manna from heaven. They will have lost their protection at the Security Council, at the United Nations. Because the next government that comes into the power in this country, when we start this nation all over again, there's not going to be a special relationship with Israel or anybody else. We're going to put in a leadership that puts America first, second, and third. And anybody who says they're a friend of Israel, fine, move there. Give you a suitcase. Here's a ticket. First class, one way, go. Get out of here. But that's who is really behind all of the efforts to try and find some way to derail this movement, this protest, this mass rising of anger of the American people. Israel loves having you all as their slave. You are constantly forced to take money from your pocket and send it to Israel, supposedly for something that happened long before you were ever born. And that's a big part of the reason we're in such trouble in this country. You can't bleed that much money out of a society and not have an ill effect. And that's why you're going to see the media trying as hard as they can to not mention the real agenda, the real purpose. For all of these people in all of these cities, over 40 cities right now across America, it's anti-greed, it's anti-Federal Reserve. It's got nothing to do with climate change or any of those other things the media is trying to convince you it is. We want the reign of the money junkies to come to an end. And it's time for that to happen.